Hello, welcome to today's video. So what we're going to be chatting about today is how to measure your training intensity for an effective workout. It's really important that when following your training program written by me, that you are challenging yourself by choosing an appropriate weight for an appropriate amount of reps. Your workouts are meant to be hard, okay, without compromising your technique. So today I'm going to just share with you a little bit of info about what progressive overload is and what RPE is. That way you can maximize your workouts to build more muscle, get stronger, and build your dream body. Okay, so let's start firstly with progressive overload. What is it? Why do we need it? Okay, so progressive overload is basically over time we are progressively increasing load. Okay, we need it because our body is actually really smart and it can adapt to load easily. Okay, which means that if you are doing your workouts and you're doing the exact same weight, the exact same reps at the exact same technique for too long, you're not going to see a change in your body composition because our body has no reason to change. Okay, we haven't done anything to challenge it. So to make continued progress, you need to apply progressive overload. Okay, so progressive overload looks like a few different things. So an increased range of motion, an increase in weight used, an increase in total reps, an increase of total sets, a decreased speed of movement, and then a decreased rest between sets. So there's a few different ways that you can actually progressively overload, not just adding more weight. So you don't need to be constantly adding heaps more weight every single week. It should be actually quite a slow progression, but don't underestimate a slow progression, right? Because a slow progression compounds into a really big amount of strength increase, right? So starting from the start, the first thing to focus on always is the correct technique. Okay, once you have achieved the correct technique and when I say correct technique, I mean your full range of motion and a really controlled speed of movement with a very clear contraction at the peak of the movement. Okay, once you've done that, then you can start looking at adding more weight and adding more reps. Because I really don't ever want a client to compromise their form in order to lift more weights. If you fail to implement progressive overload principles, you're not going to make any further progress to your strength or an increase of muscle, okay? An easy way to look at progressive overload is from a weight lifting perspective is, for example, you're going to pick a challenging weight for 8 reps. Then you will stay at that same weight until you can reach 12 reps with good form. Then you'll increase the weight and you'll come back down to 8 reps and then you'll work your way up again, okay? So this might look like 10 kilos for 8 reps, then working up over a couple weeks, 10 kilos for 12 reps, then we'll go up to 12 kilos for 8 reps, and then we'll keep working up over a few weeks until we can get 12 reps at 12 kilos, and then the cycle continues, okay? So that's a really simple way to look at progressive overload. But as I mentioned before, the main focus is on the technique first, range of motion, speed of movement, and then looking at increasing weight. So really, really important if you want to actually see change in your body. When we are starting a new training program, it's important to know that in week 1, it's all about just finding your weights. Okay, you're not going to be doing your maximum amount of effort in week 1. You want to just perfect your form, get into the flow of your program and not look for your max weights. You just want to find a challenging weight where you know you can achieve progressive overload upon, okay? Especially at the start of a program, you just want to aim for consistency. You don't want to go too hard, too quick and then burn out, okay? So how do we know how hard we actually should be training? And the easiest way to measure this is just using the intensity scales called RPE and RIR. Okay, bit of a mouthful there, but so basically RPE is the rate of perceived exertion. Okay, it's a scale that we use to see how hard someone feels while they're in their working set. It's really helpful because then you know, like, am I actually pushing myself hard enough in order to see an increase in my strength or an increase in my muscle? Okay. So we look at the RPE scale here. It's from 1 to 10, from very light all the way up to maximum effort. Maximum effort would be I'm failing my last rep in my set. Okay. There is a correlation between RPE and RIR, which is your number of reps in reserve. Okay. So the number of remaining reps that a person can do with good form before failing. All right. So for example, if a person rates their exertion levels as an 8 out of 10, they'd likely have about 2 reps in reserve, so they'd be 2 reps off failing their set, okay? So remember, again, your workout should be challenging. You're not just going through the motions. You should be working quite close to failure on each set, okay? So ask yourself, could I have done more reps in that set? If the answer is yes, that's probably a mental note to increase your strength, increase your weight, or increase the amount of reps that you're doing. Again, I just want to stress how important it is to remember that form over failure is the mindset that I always want you to work towards, okay? We're trying to get close to failure, but not in order to fully sacrifice your form, okay? The risk is not worth the reward when it comes to especially compound lifts. And what's the point of lifting something if you can't lift it properly? Okay, we want to have good technique. If you're here at the Female Collective, you don't want to be doing half reps. We don't want you doing those quarter reps. We want that full range of motion, right? Full range of motion, good control, that speed, and then get you strong. Because then when you're strong as fuck, you are gonna have good technique, okay? And your technique shouldn't decrease in order to lift more weight. If it does, it's too heavy, okay? You need to prioritize your safety. It's not worth getting an injury just to hit a new PB. And just remember as well, it's a lot easier to go to failure if you're using a machine compared to a barbell. It's a bit easier and a bit safer to do it on a machine, okay? And finally, should you train if you're sore? Please make sure you space your workouts apart so there's enough time to actually recover between each training session. I never program too much volume for a client, so if you're not recovering, you are probably not focusing on your recovery through stretching, foam rolling, and you are probably not eating enough protein or even eating enough calories. So there's some places that you can start. Obviously, following a new program, you are going to be experiencing some muscle soreness, especially in that first 1 to 2 weeks. But after that, you should be recovering quite well from your program if you are actually having enough rest in between and you're stretching, foam rolling, and you are focusing on your sleep, okay? If you are training when you're sore, you're going to be less likely to reach the full range of motion. You're going to be less likely to be able to add load, and you're going to then be less likely to progressive overload, which is actually vital for results. As we've just gone through this whole module, you definitely know why it's so important. And then obviously you are at an increased risk of injury, and no one should be getting injured while they're training. So if you are getting an injury, you have likely avoided your recovery methods, okay? Injuries are not normal when you're training, okay? So please just assess your recovery. Well, that's everything for this video. I hope you guys learned a lot about how to know if you're training hard enough or not. And yeah, happy training and lift heavy.